to mundo fine, night train to the end. Running hard and running fast to meet my future and away from my past. Taking the gamble that cannot last. Night train to the end.
Welcome to the Frater H. Nate Show. This is a show I haven't resurrected in many years. Last incarnation of the show was as a it was basically I would have like a TTS, basically read news and stuff. Like I would kind of create like a fake host and stuff. Though at one point in time I did the show myself. I won't be doing this like that anymore. I'll just, but it just a warning. The show doesn't have a consistent time where it ends. Some shows are longer, some are shorter. I will start with paranormal news, a little paranormal news, and then we'll do some reading, from some of my different reference books and stuff that I use. And let's begin. We begin with a Nessie review for 2021. It is time to look back on the year past, and so let us straight into the recorded sightings via Gary Campbell's Sightings Register. This records 6 sightings for the year, which compares to 8 in 2020 and 13 in 2019. Now, not every account will turn out to be the monster, let alone judge and be persuaded in their own mind. In fact, to this day, there is no such thing as a confirmed sighting, as there is no agreed benchmark by which to measure such accounts, and who would be the judge that would choose as the ruler to perform the measurement. In my mind, there are sightings that are beyond my reasonable doubt, but that will not be the case for others. I would categorize 4 as single humps. 1 is a water disturbance, and the last was detected underwater on sonar. 3 had photographs, and 1 included a sketch. The quality of the photographs are not good, and again exemplify the problem of photography at the Loch with mobile phone cameras. Assuming there were the devices in use, the image below, taken by Thomas Dobinson in the 30th of July, drives home the point. The witness states that the dark-colored object below the castle was about 200 yards and the size of a dog. One may curiously ask what kind of a dog, a Great Dane or a Chihuahua. It was assumed a typical mutt. When we are talking about 2 or 3 feet across. If we triple this to represent the 6 to 9 feet of a hump, that would break the surface for an 18 to 70 foot monster. Even that would not look great on such a photograph. And this is a disturbance. This is a distance. One may expect some clarity, but no, assuming these estimates are correct, such a close-up of a large creature may not cut the mustard due to the poor lens and aperture involved. Remember, mobile phones are for close-up friends and family or huge buildings, mountains, and so on. I do not think I have seen a decent, defensible picture of the monster since 2016, and the Cape Powell fin-like object. Before that, we may go back to Bill Jobs and Jonathan Blight around 10 years ago. Have mobile phones made the situation worse as people ditched decent cameras for them? I don't know, but it is a subject for discussion. One report that I rank higher was by Colin Veacock on the 30th of July. I have read the reports in the media, but I know Colin from his previous postings as a Nessie fan on Steve Feltham's Facebook group. Colin said the newspaper reports get various things wrong, so I lifted his own account, given in fragments, and reproduced it here. I was scanning up and down the loch down of the castle where, on my third pass, I noticed this object about two-thirds of the way across the loch. It was obviously just there. I didn't, as one site put it, see a prehistoric monster surge out of the water. At first, I thought it was a small, but later, when the Jacobite were passed, I got a better idea of scale. It was 2 feet high, 10 to 12 foot long, and tapered away into the water. I came to that estimate by judging it was the same size as the handrail at the rear of the warrior. A black speedboat passed close, but it was never moved. An Indian couple parked on my right, followed my directions, gave me thumbs up, indicating he could see it. Then the clouds broke, bathing the opposite shore in hills and bright sunlight. I lost sight in the reflection of the water. I didn't, as one sight see it plunge into the peaty depths. I just lost sight of it. I think it was an animal, but not prehistoric. Got to admit, though, while watching it, I was hoping the classic neck and head would pop up. I always thought that Nessie is something completely new, something we haven't come across before due to it spending most of its time in the deep water. I think it's the same species of animal spotted in the bodies of water of that latitude. It was just too far away. It was the same size as the handrail of the rear of the Jacobite warrior. Besides which, every time I looked, it took me a while to relocate it. I should say as well, I thought it was much smaller until the boat came along and gave me a better understanding of scale and distance involved. Yeah, let's see. Just taking a break. And we are back. I wanted to state a real quick addy here for my website, which is lulu.com. Lulu.com/spotlight/FraterSH. That's FraterSH with no capital letters, no spaces. It's just all one word all together. So, Colin provided a sketch shown here. When I saw this, I thought to myself, where have I seen this before? The high end and the tapering humpa evoked a memory of another sighting, separated by decades but connected by similarity. The answer came from Rupert T. Gould. A mere 80 years before, the witness saw Mr. W. H. Moore near Inkakaduk Bay on the 26th of August, 1933, about 9:15 p.m. The text from the Gold is below. Mr. Moore was the picture being shown, just cutting here from the text from what I'm reading. I'm gonna be honest with you. Probably a lot of times this was probably just a log. I mean, because like the picture that they're showing, there's not really a hump. It just looks like a piece of board sticking out of the water. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, I like anyone who comes up with crazy theories like this. And so I don't mind doing paranormal news on stuff like this because it's just makes you think. It is actually neat. But there is stuff I've seen. I've seen real life video footage of ghosts opening doors and all that stuff. I mean, like for example, the Lizzie Borden house where all the murders happened in Massachusetts. I think it was Massachusetts or Connecticut. The axe murder. And there's a guy's website. I think his name is Oh My Gosh, I think. And yeah, he's actually got like cam footage of him sleeping, and you can see like the doors opening, and they're very haunted places. Those are probably some of the YouTube has really kind of provided the best content for haunting footages of like real hauntings and stuff. show this is, it is real. It's very real. But back to the Loch Ness article. Mr. Moore was walking from Fort Augustus along the road running towards Port Clare, which skirts in Cardock Bay. Just after he passed Cherry Island, he noticed a powerful wash in the loch and observed an object heading in past close to the far side of the island. He took it at first to be a boat hurrying for the canal lock, whose gates at the time were close at 9 p.m. As to the visibility, he remarks, at the time, the sun was setting behind the hills, casting bright, reflecting lights high over the loch and the treetops, while the water was dead calm. The object passed dangerously close to the far side of Cherry Island and headed into the Incancardoc Bay. By this time, Mr. Moore, who having heard no sound of oars or engine, had concluded that it was not a boat, but turned around and was walking back towards the bay. When within the bay, it slowed down and appeared to roll down from side to side, causing a rolling wash, which spread until it reached the shore. Suspecting that he was looking at X, he left the road and went down towards the shore for a closer view, managing to get within, as he estimated, 200 yards of it. 2 points chiefly surprised him: X's color and its size. He had gathered from the previous accounts that X was black, or almost so, where it appeared to him to be brown, with a tendency to changing colors of a lighter nature, near the surface of the water, and as he estimated the length of the portion visible to him at 40 feet, somewhat resembling an upturned boat. It rose moderately sharply at a height about 5 feet above the water's same distance from the rear end, and then sloped gently down towards the front. As he saw neither head nor tail, he concluded that the total length would scarcely be less than 50 feet. He had X in view for about 4 to 5 minutes. He started to walk back towards Fort Augustus, hoping to get a lift on the way, collect his camera, and return to photo X. As he had gone some distance, he noticed that the time was 9:30, and decided the chance of getting a photograph was remote. He therefore returned and discovered on coming in the sight of the bay that X had disappeared. Two differences between 1933 and 2021 was that Moore's creature was more than 3 times longer. Other than Moore's creature was moving, whereas Collins did not seem to budge an inch. Note that the monster continues to surprise. It had been asked to guess what direction the creature would move. You may have said right to left, as you assumed the raised portion was the shoulders, and the back proceeded down to submerged tail. But no, it heads off, tapered end first. Would Collins' object have moved in a similar fashion? The length to the height ratio of the Moore's monster was 8.1. Collins estimated this as between 10.1 and 6.7.1, which assumes to be, which averages to 831. Very close to the Moore account, as stated as above. Collins was less in accord with journalists who typed up his account. Since the sighting, the reporters have driven me to the point of madness. Only one swapped an email with me, and the rest just exaggerated and right out loud about what I saw. Seems if you're a reporter, you're going to write up a piece of Loch Ness. You either exaggerate and blow it out of all proportion, or you ridicule it and belittle the sighting. But what they don't do is just honestly report the facts. One argument the skeptics of that the journalists take mundane accounts and spice them up to monstrous levels. In other words, the original account would have been easily explicable if known. It is an attempt to tar and brush many an eyewitness story In one sweeping generalization, as we can see here, they do exaggerate, but the original account is good enough to avoid simplistic dismissal. Okay, let's see. Back from a little break here. Okay, two differences between 1933 and 1921 was that Moyer's creature was more than 3 times longer. Another that the Moyer creature was moving, whereas Collins did not seem to budge an inch. Note that the monster continues to surprise. If one has been asked to guess the direction of the creature would move, you may have said right to left, as you assumed. The raised portion was the shoulders and the back receded down to the submerged tail, but no, it heads off tapered and first. When Collins' object had moved in a similar fashion, the length to the height ratio of the Moore monster was 8.1. Colin estimated his is between 10.7. Yeah, I already read that part. I'm sorry. Since this sighting, the reporters have driven me to the point of madness. Only one has swapped an email with me. Just exaggerated and right out loud what I saw, and it seems to be that if you're a reporter, you're going to write up a piece of about on Loch Ness, you're going to exaggerate, blow it out of proportion. But what they don't do is honestly report the facts. One argument, the skeptics, is that the journalists take mundane accounts and splice them up to monstrous levels. In other words, the original account would have easily, explicably, if known, it as an attempt to tar and brush many an eyewitness story in one sweeping generalization. As we can see here, they do exaggerate, but the original account is good enough to avoid simplistic dismissal. Indeed, Gould himself re-interviewed many a witness where they were previously published and found them still to be notable accounts. One of the observations that the Veacock Dobinson accounts happened on the same day, separated by 3.5 hours and perhaps less than a mile apart. Perhaps Cullen could verify that. Maybe that is just coincidences. Perhaps it lends mutual credibility. The sonar image was discussed in this blog only a few weeks ago at this link. It is a good account by Benjamin Scanton, allied with the boat captain Mike Bell. I discussed the matter with Mike and felt it was an object it was more considerable dimensions, though that exactly those were and what the actual morphology of the object were beyond the capability of the sonar device. I assumed that we were still getting a few more of these images in the year ahead of us. The third class of account now merits its own section on Gary's sightings website, that is the genre of webcam video images. Gary numbers them at 10 for the year, compared to the 5 local sightings and 1 sonar scan. 5 were by regular webcam watcher Eoin Fagan, 2 were by Kaylin Wangle, and 1 by Whelming Jiang, Matt Reddick, and Rosalind Casey. Now, the regular charge is that these images were just specs or not of real use. I would disagree with that, but when I checked the 3 photos, we have the local surface sightings. They were no better, perhaps worse. That's not the fault of any person. They can only work with the tools that they have, but perhaps some hope is that at hand that Steve Feltham is looking into installing a webcam from his home on Doors Bay, or perhaps somewhere close by. Obviously, as close to the loch as possible is high on the list, but I would also just a bit of elevation as well in a good HD resolution. Other higher cost questions may be infrared night vision, slow panning to cover more lock and zoom. I have no idea how feasible all that is. How much for the sightings log? What about the research of his blog? The main breakthrough was finding the Sydney Wignall and the aerial film of stuff in Loch Morar. It took a bit of digging and luck, but I got some images out there in the objects below. However, I conclude I was as ambiguous as Sydney was in the object's identity. For now, I will say tree log and hope to investigate it on site in years ahead. Yeah, see a lot of it. I like. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you on Frater's H Night Show. We, I cover a lot of stories. There's stuff that is actually more in line with things I like. I usually like anything biblical and occult and stuff. Deal with ancient history and stuff. But there is some stuff, that, quite frankly honest, I will cover, even though it may be something I'm not really into, like Loch Ness. I'm just sorry, I just don't find there's enough proof of it. I think that it's mostly logs and a lot of, misunderstanding and stuff. But, it's like I said, it's imagination, and, it's interesting to it's local folklore is very fascinating, and you can always find lots of local stories with places that have developed as the centuries went on. Have their own thing, like a Loch Ness. The other area of investigation in this film was the location of the famous 1934 surgeon's photograph. I take the view it is a fake, but where from? In my article, I hesitate an educated guess, and the clues in the story and picture suggest it may have taken at a quiet spot in Foyers Bay. That opened a slight possibility that something of the model may still be recoverable under ideal circumstances. To that end, I headed there in July with my metal detector, and you could see in action before trawling the swallows. Let's see. The trouble was I picked up so much metal thrown in over the decades. Any trace of the Christian Sperling submarine may be lost in the noise. If there at all, it was a speculative punt and a bit of fun to boot. At the Loch in general, I published 2 trip reports that are here and here. I also did a couple of interviews for a crypto-oriented podcast, and you can see what I wrote. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much. Some are revisited this year, as mentioned, Spurgeon's photograph. Also, the AAA sightings by John McLean from 1938. New information bolstered in this account. I hope to start 2022 with an article on the classic sightings. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it, folks. It was a nice little way to get paranormal news going. I'm not gonna. These shows aren't gonna always be like an hour or whatever. It's just whatever it turns out to be. Because I figure if I'm gonna do it every day, I wouldn't want it to be like 2-3 hour shows. I mean, you could probably do that if you had open lines or something. You had people just like coming on, but for now, I sort of just read something very randomly. Our first show, I'm just going to kind of end it there, and then tomorrow, who knows? Like I may find a whole new story, and we keep going and going and going, and there will be other projects I have. We'll have a new Christian ministry, a video ministry, I should say. It's not a public one. It's going to be called Misty Forest Bible Ministries. And then finally is the Frater versus Retro, and those are more like old sort of Phil Hartman Saturday Night Live sort of parodies and impressions and old stuff, and then some old classic video games thrown in there too. And so, well, folks, thank you and have a good night.